Greetings, fellow fairy tale things. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
Many years ago, the Rill became enamored by a fairy tale unlike any other. A story about love, friendship, and family with an irreverent charm that all started with an ogre, a donkey, and a princess. So please join us on our epic Shrek quest to rediscover the original All Star who went from the swamp to screen to even stage in this simply smashing Shrek-Vember.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the lyrics to the Dragon. I love the song in the intro, the Counting Crow song, but it's no All Star. It's no All Star. It's not one that you can instantly just like, yeah, I know every words of that. Just give me like the first, just give me like somebody, and you can just fill in the blank there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Oh man. Um, so, Dragon, we're getting to Shrek 2 right off the bat, starting with my thesis statement. No time to beat around the bush here, Dragon. I love this movie. I think this movie is a nearly perfect, flawless sequel. I still feel that way. It's not completely flawless. It's not completely perfect. It's got one element and one element in particular that I sense is going to start to become a problem with this franchise. We'll get into that in the midst of the conversation. Having said that, Dragon, revisiting this movie, my God, does this movie hold up? I mean, I honestly think the first movie might have a bit more going for it in terms of its message and its morals and its themes. But Dragon, this one is just so goddamn funny. I mean, I think that's what everyone who loves Shrek 2 kind of goes to first about it. It's like there are so many jokes packed into this thing, and not all of them land perfectly, but it's one of those like laughs per minute ratio movies. It's right up there with something like oh, I don't know, like the Lego movie, in terms of just like having it's a movie with heart, but it's also a movie that just keeps the laughs coming fast and furious from beginning to end. And it's also one of those great sequels, Dragon, that expands on the original, gives us a ton of world building, and gives us some fantastic new characters. So, man, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of this movie, man. I mean, this I would say it's a big coin toss between this and How to Train Your Dragon 2 as DreamWorks' biggest achievement.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely one that kind of put DreamWorks on the map in many regards. I'm not saying it was like the first time it ever happened because I think Prince of Egypt covered a lot of ground for DreamWorks, but it was definitely it was again you got to remember for many years this was like the highest grossing animated film of all time. So this definitely it was a big splash for DreamWorks where people knew the name DreamWorks from this film probably, but. For me, I remember I followed the making of this one. I really did because I really gravitated towards the first Shrek movie. I was kind of there, just kind of seeing it as it came out, not really following it when it was like announced and everything. Just kind of went to the theater, like, oh my god, it was a really good movie, and I just kind of was kind of hooked on it. So then, the second movie comes out. I remember like seeing like in some of the magazines they were talking about interviews and kind of teasing up the movie and everything. Oh boy, like that shot of King Harold holding the axe is like, oh man, this looks really interesting. I can't wait to see this movie. I mean, at the time this thing came out, it was the height of Shrek, and it's so funny looking back at it now because 2004 is when this thing was released. 2004, it was kind of the year of Shrek and Shrek 2 and Spider-Man 2. Those were kind of the two big heavyweights of that year that were really on my radar. It was like, it was before where we're at with it now. You're keeping track of every big movie coming out. It was just when they were starting to come out in their infancy. It was like, oh boy, the two big kind of franchise makers at their starts there. It's just really impressive and full of wonders, and it did dazzle. It's definitely a very probably the most rewatchable of the Shrek franchise.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay, so speaking of the background, Dragon, let's get a little bit more deep dive into that before we cover the big pillars of this movie.
All right, so as you imagine, the first Shrek comes out. It's very successful, which leads to the early stages of the franchise. Now, the important distinction here is that I can't 100% verify this, but I do know they were basically Shrek 2 got greenlit while the first Shrek movie wasn't even released yet. Like it was towards the very end of production, Shrek 2 got the green light to get another movie. So that implies to me that they had such a good time making it. They had such a good feeling about Shrek. They were going to give it at least another go because this was early in DreamWorks' beginnings. And early in the beginnings, DreamWorks was aching for a franchise. They tried in the past with El Dorado and with tried it with El Dorado. They tried it with they really tried it with Sinbad and the Seven Seas. But basically, those two movies they didn't perform as well, and they were kind of their whole franchise dream was kind of shot. So Shrek, I guess, with the advent of computer animation done
really man.
I'm sorry?
I said Sinbad is just a really underappreciated movie.
Yeah, but it's no El Dorado, let's face it. Yeah. But yes, so DreamWorks has been dying for a franchise, and I don't know if it was because the same year he had Monsters Inc. and the whole the best animated feature category. I don't know if they were just kind of feeling the ropes of we got a good feeling about this. Let's give it another movie and see where it goes in terms of franchise. And then of course after that, that's when it really got into the whole manufacturing point of view, which we'll get to in the next installment. But so the point is, first movie is a big success, leads to a franchise in the beginnings. The actors, they got a big $10 million raise all around, which is really smart because they realized how indispensable they were to the movie. Like Mike Myers, he cared about the character and figuring it out and getting it just right in the first movie. He came in for like twice the amount of work for no extra charge, and it was really but he was smart enough on the second movie where okay, guys, let's get a bump in pay raise here, guys. Come on. So he, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz, of course, for the whole. I don't think they had a contract deal at that point. I think they just they basically I don't think they were contracted for like the whole franchise at that point. I think it was just like, okay, let's just raise the pay and get on their good sides, and then when we do a franchise, we'll just sign on for a multiple picture deal. I think that's how that went. Anyway, so when they're working on Shrek 2, there was a dispute with the story. So they had the original directors on the movie from the first Shrek. It's a no-brainer. Okay, let's get the same crew we had in the first movie on the second movie. But there was a problem in direction. They basically had to they got rid of half the story and directing team on Shrek because they wanted to go in different direction. They were going to stick to kind of more of the classic fairy tale setting of the first movie and kind of the ride. They were kind of sticking more of that kind of Shrek going on an adventure vein where they wanted to take it into a different place. They wanted to kind of go in a different direction. So therefore they outs those guys. And they brought in a new director, brought in Andrew Adamson. Andrew Adamson, he was the one who basically was the big advocate of the film and pop culture reference. That's all that we have with Shrek today does stem from Andrew Adamson. That's really where a lot of the more on the nose pop culture stuff comes from. And here I think it's more well balanced. It's going to get later on, but we have. The original team was Terry Rossi and Ted Elliott, and they were the guys who wrote Aladdin, Mark of Zorro, El Dorado, and so a lot of really good movies under their belt. So they were ousted.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, certainly, yes. I mean, they have like a lot of great movies under their belt. So they're ousted. We bring in David N. Wise. Now, David N. Wise is really known for a lot of our nostalgic favorites, a lot of our nostalgic kind of films like All Dogs Go to Heaven, Rugrats in Paris, Rugrats the movie. Basically, kind of a Nick guy. He wrote the Hanukkah special for Rugrats. Is one of his big claims to fame. So we got David N. Wise working on this. And again, it kind of feeds into my Nickelodeon thing I was saying about the first movie. This kind of had like kind of a 90s Nick vibe to it, but in CG,
Sure.
Well, let's see, of course, there's a huge technical upgrade with this movie. The technology has evolved as with any animated movie, so the animation looked a lot better than it did in the first movie, and it already looked really impressive in the first movie. Conrad Vernon was promoted to co-director. Of course, Conrad Vernon, the voice of Gingy, the gingerbread man, so he's kind of bumping up in the world. Good for him. And see, I guess. Oh yes, one last thing. So there's a very, in terms of the tone and kind of the inspiration for a lot of the movie here, they're looking at Guess Who's Coming to Dinner as a main point of reference, hence the big dinner scene we have in the movie, and very much like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Meet the Parents for the whole. Shrek's meeting the parents, and obviously there's a big divide there, kind of a very anti-ogre sentiment from good old King Harold there, and it ends up being the highest-grossing animated film of all time until Toy Story 3. Yes. Okay, there you go. That's the backstory.
All right, so let's get into the main heroes here, starting with the Green Ogre himself. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dragon, before we go any further, I just want to quickly acknowledge that running from that running in the field scene.
Yeah, right. You mean the ending of during the montage, right?
Yeah, during the montage. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dragon. That is that, my friend, is probably one of the main Shrek memes out there.
Really? I thought. Wait.
Well, here on the last uh, about how they would take different levels of the animation model.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see the like bouncing up and down in the field dragon. That's everywhere. Different levels of animation model of him in that one field shot.
Yeah.
That's some iconic Shrek right there.
Let's not go back to the meme well that much. Okay, let's just really let's and again we got all the meme stuff out of our systems with the first one. I want to go back to memes.
I'm sorry, I just had to get it out of my system on this one just because I rewatched this movie like 3 times, and every time I saw that montage, I was like, oh boy, there it is. All right, so yeah, honestly, Dragon, I feel like Shrek just kind of becomes progressively less likable throughout the movies. And in this one, I don't think it's a problem yet, but I do think he is a little bit more rough around the edges than he was in the first one. I feel like in the first one, he was kind of like, sort of this ogre on the offset who was, a big softy on the inside. Of course, the big obvious message of that movie. And this one, I don't know, Dragon. He just kind of seems like grumpy and stubborn throughout a lot of the plot.
I disagree with that. I mean, there's a stubborn element to it, Tiki, but I really think it's Shrek in a position where he's very uncomfortable. He knew this wasn't going to go well. No one was listening to him, and he did lose his cool. But again, that kind of gets our story moving here, and throughout the rest of the movie, he's apologizing for that essentially in his quest to help
No, you're
Fiona.
right. The whole movie is kind of about making amends and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of digging at hairs here, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think that he's as likable in this movie, but he's still he's still a very good character.
Well, yeah. So I mean, Shrek here for me, I loved in regards to kind of where he goes in this movie. He's in love. He's opened himself up. He's still an ogre, but he's not alone. He has some friends now. He's kind of broadened his horizons. I mean, what the whole accidentally in love montage communicates is that hey, Shrek's still running from the villagers with pitchforks and torches and everything, but now he's got his wife. Hooray! And it's like it's like again, Shrek is still the same old ogre, but now he's a little happier about his existence. He's not all lonely anymore. And importantly, I think in this movie we take him out of his element. He's taken a big leap to kind of to far, far away, which is kind of a very royal and very populated 90210 kingdom in kind of the world of Shrek here. It's very Hollywood. And again, not really Shrek's speech. Shrek's kind of the small town ogre, and we take him into the big, the kind of the LA equivalent of fairy tales. Mm-hmm. And again, I just love him in kind of this very relatable position, meeting the in-laws and looking for a blessing that he doesn't feel that he needs, and he's very. Again, he is very reluctant. But here's what I love about it. On a rewatch, something occurred to me of the movie that again, it's been a while since I've seen Shrek because you know it. It's ingrained in the DNA after you've watched it so many times when it first came out because it was so good. But it kind of occurred to me that I love that what Shrek fears and what Shrek contends with in this movie is the harsher rejection than what the first movie had. Because he knew what everyone's reactions is at him. Like, they get a glimpse at him, they run, they scream, they run away. But here's the worst rejection he could ever face in life, Tiki's. And kind of the bias and kind of the prejudice that he would face against the father-in-law who just disapproves of everything that he is. Like, that's the deeper cut of rejection. That's the harsh skepticism and prejudice that you can't contend with, even if that's
what I'm getting at is like it is a darker tone, and you're right about that. I'm not saying it as a criticism. I just think Shrek is by nature and by design less jolly this time around, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, as you're pointing out and illustrating. It's a very plot important reason why it has to be that way.
Yeah. I think by the end he's just kind of he's putting we kind of put kind of the old defense of of kind of put true love to the test in a way in this movie. And again, I like that we risk doing the same ending all over again, where it's all about true love's kiss, but we kind of put the definition of true love's kiss, of true love, to the test in this movie, where it all boils down to Shrek. Like, what are you willing? Basically, true love in a marriage. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, again, what are you willing to risk for? Is like, if you would define love as what you're willing to sacrifice for the happiness of the other person in the relationship. And I like that we elevate, we take what we were presented with on the surface in the first Shrek movie. Again, we dive deeper into what it means here with his character and what he goes through, and I really like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I mean, we make him human in this movie too, which is so he's like Shrek is taken to a really weird place in this movie, but it all kind of works, and it's like, again, he's willing to be all human and different than what he is, and he kind of likes it, but he doesn't really need it. But again, he's willing to sacrifice all the stuff that kind of is what his identity has been and what his identity has been for years to to kind of be, I guess, representative of what he thinks Fiona wants and what he kind of knew Fiona was grappling with in the first movie. It's kind of interesting.
And I'm kind of trying to save some of the Shrek in human form stuff for the layer section. Right?
Well, sure. Let's save it for that too. Yeah, by all means. Okay, so let's move on.
So Donkey.
Yeah.
Dragon, Donkey is probably the weak point of the movie for me.
Really?
Yes, well, really. I'm sorry. You sound like I'm like kicking a puppy or something.
Okay, well, look, I'll admit, I mean, Donkey isn't lighting the world on fire. It doesn't have a lot to do in the movie, but I mean, I thought, again,
no, it's not that he doesn't have a lot to do. It's that he's straight up annoying in a way that he wasn't in the first movie.
I'll give it. Let me use your Shrek point from earlier. Let me apply it to here. Okay, I think Donkey progressively does risk getting more annoying as each movie goes on. But I don't know. I didn't get a lot. I see a little bit of what you're talking about there. I think in the beginning,
I'm not saying he takes the movie by any stretch, because obviously I still love it. But let's just say, Dragon, that carriage ride sequence definitely that's what I was talking about in particular when I said this isn't a perfect movie. I mean, that's something that I just need to fast forward through, man. I mean, I guess maybe it's the point of the film to get, you're kind of in Shrek's position and feeling the awkwardness, but it's just, it's hard to sit through.
I'm sorry, Tigams. I liked that. I mean, I didn't love the scene, but I liked it. It was kind of funny. It's the whole like Shrek mimicking him in the carriage.
That noise that he makes, that clicking sound.
I mean, just seeing kind of Shrek just kind of like getting back at him with like mimicking him and mocking. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And just like annoying Donkey after annoying him for such a long ride.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one. Dragon, points for subjectivity, Steven.
All right, sure. I'm just saying, like, okay, well, let's getting to something that I hope that we can agree on with Donkey is that I always love that. I love when we get to the whole Shrek and Donkey adventure of it all, where it kind of takes us back to that place in the first movie without being a full rehash or anything, where it's like, Shrek's asking Donkey, "Hey, up for a little adventure, Donkey?" And of course, he's up for an adventure. He's up for another quest, because that's what bonded them and their friendship in the first place. He's showing that he's a good friend to Shrek, and he's accompanying him during the hunting bonding trip with the father-in-law, and of course, when things go south, he's there for Shrek, and Donkey's feeling a little threatened by a new character in this movie. He's but I love that, basically with our new character Puss in Boots, who we'll talk about soon, he's like a Donkey's like contending with another talking animal character within the movie. But I love that he's confident in himself and with his history with Shrek that he knows that Puss isn't going to knock him off his stool, knock him off his peg,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think
I can definitely see. Like I said, at this point, he's fine. There's just some scenes with him where I'm like, okay, this is a little bit overbearing. But like I said, it's nothing that makes the movie bad or anything. It's like I still think this movie's probably a 10 out of 10 movie when it gets all down to it. But like I said, maybe some of the Donkey stuff could have been trimmed. Maybe I don't exactly know what you do with it.
What do you think about the Noble Steed stuff?
Yeah, the noble steed stuff is all fun.
I mean, I love that he becomes the noble steed that he always felt that he was throughout the whole franchise, throughout both movies. He feels that he is a noble steed. And we kind of see what he thinks of himself inside, presented outwards, and of course it all kind of goes back to this beautiful thing with Fiona, where she says, I'm sorry, to Shrek during the whole transformation scene, where Shrek's saying, you look pretty noble to me." It's like you look like a noble steed to me, which is really sweet.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I guess Fiona?
Yeah.
Okay, well, outside of some disturbing character models on some promotional artwork.
Okay, look, that's nothing. Again, well, that's not against the movie. That's all against the. We're basically Tiki and I have noticed recently. Again, I've never noticed this before. There's some really disturbing, kind of
It was
off-modelness
literally right
around.
when I started pulling up images to use for this, Dragon. It was like 10 minutes before we started this.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think Fiona is probably the heart and soul of the film.
Yeah, yeah. She's
This is her movie, like this is her journey in much in the same way the original Shrek was Shrek's journey.
I mean, I think Fiona's. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I know what you're talking about. I know Fiona's pivotal to the movie, and it's Fiona's story. But I think Shrek's driving it, though. I think that's the difference. I mean, Fiona is like she's the story's built around Fiona, where the movie's built around Shrek in the first one. But again, like we don't really like Fiona isn't necessarily driving it, but she's pivotal in it.
She's not driving the plot, but I feel like she is driving the themes.
Yes. So I mean, with that, yes, she's very pivotal to the thing as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I really like the design of her as an ogre, bearing outside of that promotional artwork.
Yeah, I think the animation reflected best on her because one, I think the dress looks a lot better than it did in the first movie when she was in the ogre form, and again, it just looks a lot. It looks again the animation I think of all reflects best on her.
Yeah, and she's not even intolerable to look at when she turns back into a human.
Yeah.
Unlike the first movie.
Right. I like that she's happy with herself thanks to Shrek in the first movie, and again, she's as a character, she's been she's taken the experience of the first movie, and again, she's become better, and now it's kind of it's redefined her whole perspective of herself that she's taking into this movie, and she's trying to reconnect. Again, it's a really great story that kicks us off here. She wants to reconnect with her parents, learning what she's learned, being okay with herself, and of course, this is not what she imagined for herself, and definitely not what her parents imagined. It's something they all have to contend with. And basically, there's an obvious strain that Fiona's trying to work through and trying to, in some ways, she's trying to avoid. But again, it's like the dinner scene. The dinner scene says it all. Where they're at there, it's a really tense dinner conversation. Fiona's putting on a happy face. She's trying to play peacemaker, and basically Shrek's throughout the movie he's voicing the obvious things that Fiona's trying to downplay and trying to like kind of negate. Like no, we need their blessing. Like no, we don't need their blessing. How do you think this is a good idea? I didn't want to go because of this reason. Which again, it's a valid point in the argument, but again, not realizing if she really wants this to work. And just seeing kind of Fiona deal with all this, and she's, I think it's important she's willing to forgive and move forward. Where Shrek isn't. Like Shrek keeps bringing up the whole, like, you locked your daughter in a dragon guarded castle. What's wrong with you? Where she's willing to forgive and look past that. So it's all really interesting with her.
That's a little. In this movie's a little messy, to be sure.
But no, I like that she's trying to move forward from the obvious thing of like, no, why would you lock your daughter in a dragon guarded castle? Of course, I think the end of this movie with Fiona really puts in perspective what she has learned. Where if you have a chance to be the beautiful princess that would kind of solve everybody's problems, the surface problems that you've had, would you want to be normal, or would you want to not be normal, and all of that. And basically, again, we put all of that to the test in this movie with her. So, and we see she has absolutely grown, and she's her instincts in the end are correct with the whole Shrek shell game in the end. Like before everything was revealed, she already had kind of a feeling in her gut, and we saw that unfold. She has like she knows Shrek underneath the surface, and I love that she knew that Charming was not Shrek.
Yeah, also props to Cameron Diaz because I feel like she's a lot more energetic and comfortable in her own skin as the character than she was in the first Shrek. And that's probably, thematically appropriate to the character because the character herself is more comfortable in her own skin. So Diaz does a very good job of playing that confidence.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot more comfort in the voice acting on this one. Yeah. All right.
All right. So let's get to Puss in Boots.
Oh boy, Puss in Boots is in wee little boots.
My favorite. That's one of my favorite, like, offhand moments in the whole movie. Like, Puss in Boots gets this big dramatic moments, and then Shrek just writes it off like, "Hey, look, it's a little cat."
That is pretty funny. So Puss in Boots is a great character. So great we gave him a spin-off in his own franchise. But no, seriously, Puss in Boots was a great addition to the Shrek universe. I really liked him.
Yeah, I mean, he was just like the runaway hit of this movie, man. He was everywhere in this summer. I just, what more needs to be said about him? His design is great. Antonio Banderas does a great job performing as him. I love that in this first movie, he's pretty interesting in terms of like, towing the line and, it first being an enemy briefly of Shrek, but then having that life debt and, really getting to know them and really becoming a part of this family. And there's a lot there for Puss in Boots in this movie. I get the sense that this character, more than a lot of the other characters, just kind of gets downgraded as the movies go on.
In a way, but let's just say we do something kind of funny with Puss in the fourth one. It's not mind-blowingly brilliant or anything, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I know about that.
Oh well, never mind then. Anyway, but yeah, I mean,
that's a perfect way to describe that plot twist with Puss is not mind-blowing.
Anyway, talking about Puss here. So, yes, basically he's like a desperado hitman with a reputation, as the ogre killer. Basically, the hitman takes on the extra hard, extra extraordinary jobs, which we kind of see a little bit in Puss's own spin-off movie. But importantly, he's kind of known as the ogre killer, and of course he's a specialty killer that is hired to take out Shrek, which leads to a great action sequence in the movie. It's great, and again, a hilarious yet really well choreographed sequence of where Puss is attacking Shrek in the trap that the king set for him.
Mm-hmm.
And we see he's very formal, very cool. And again, it's Zorro along with an amalgam of other more subtler kind of influences there. But I mean, primarily Zorro as a cat, which of course Antonio Banderas has played very well. And there's a bit of Inigo Montoya with the honor code. I feel the honor code was very reminiscent of Inigo Montoya, "You Kill My Father," and the whole thing you had with Cary Elwes in that movie. I think there's a little bit of that dynamic. Basically, his interaction with Shrek feels very Princess Bride to me, and I really like that.
Yeah, and I could definitely see the comparisons between this movie and Princess Bride, almost more so than the first movie.
Yeah, and here's the thing that didn't really dawn on me until a rewatch, TK. I think it's really brilliant when you think about it, is that Puss, as cool as he is in presentation and entrance and everything, he does have all the limitations of a cat. And it is really funny when you think about it. This guy does have a reputation. He's really great at what he does, but at the same token, he's a cat. And, like a hairball, he does a hairball and then he's helpless and he's a goner. So it's like, again, as menacing and as dangerous and as much as we build this guy up, again, he can be taken out rather easily if he's not careful.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
So again, I like that there's a drawback there, and what's really cool about the movie, Tig, is that we take Puss's fairy tale and they integrate it into the movie, where the story of Puss in Boots is pretty straightforward. He steals for his master steals from his master, and the whole the carriage scene we have later in the movie where they fake donkey the donkey as a horse being run over by a carriage. All of that's identically from the Puss in Boots fairy tale. So again, they kind of integrated that into like, what if this Puss in Boots character ran into Shrek and he had a life debt with him, which would make Shrek the new master figure in a way. So again, that's really brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, nice.
All right.
All right, you want to dive into some side characters then?
Yeah, sure, because we'd spend all day talking about Puss, but we're not going to do that. Let's talk about our side characters.
The King and Queen.
So King Harold rocks.
Go on record is to say that King Harold might be one of the best animated characters in DreamWorks' entire library.
Yes, I love King Harold so much.
Facial expressions, like this guy truly delivers in animation a great performance.
Yeah, John Cleese knocked it out of the ballpark in this movie. He really did.
I think it might be one of the best John Cleese performances, in all honesty.
I mean, it's so layered. I mean, what we have here is a truly layered performance where he has this prejudice, but he's not the villain of the movie. Amazingly, again, we've seen a bad king in the first Shrek movie. We don't want to do that over again, but we have a king who's in a bad position. And again, it feels really, again, we go to that really kind of dark place where there's a prejudice coming from like kind of real life kind of stuff you'd have in real life, where again someone's bringing an outsider into the family, and it's like and there's an expectation that's not being met. And again, King Harold has a really interesting psychology we'll get to a little later on. But just looking at what we have here, at the end of the day, the fascinating thing is that he has a prejudice, but he's a family, and like many bigots or like many people with prejudices, at least many times what we've seen, he's a family man looking out for his family. So it is coming from a place of love and trying to help his family and trying to support like the status quo. But again, he's not quite realizing how hypocritical he's being.
Yeah.
And basically, without getting too into it, just kind of his own insecurities I love that his own insecurities have been passed down from him to Fiona, which we saw in the first movie, her own insecurities she has about herself. So I really wonder how much of that is Harold projecting that onto his daughter, which of course, again, a lot of fascinating stuff you can get from King Harold. It's really important that he's conflicted. He has this arc of learning what Fiona, basically his arc is what Fiona learned in the first Shrek movie, and that's kind of what he comes to grips with throughout the movie, just kind of seeing like the influence that's been had there.
And it's pretty incredible that we get one, like to this day, one of the most expressive characters that DreamWorks has ever done, off the heels of the original Shrek, where the to be kind to the human models, they were off. They were a bit off.
They were, and I think it speaks to this, Tiki, and it's just really interesting. When we get to Shrek 4, we got a funny story about this, but we'll have to be a while before we get there. My point is, your main characters, they're gonna go the extra mile, make sure they don't look like kind of the background Uncanny Valley extras as the technology improves. So your main characters are gonna look like that, but the rest of them are gonna look in the Uncanny Valley framework. If you really pay attention, like the background, all of them are Uncanny Valley, but they're stuck with that. So they have to
montage stuff like that.
Exactly. So they have to change. They can only change up your face characters, but your background, like kind of structure characters, they can only do so much because they're stuck with that now. They have to be in that style now. At least to a point. But yeah, I mean, King Harold on the whole, he's just kind of he's a more sympathetic Lord Farquaad in a way. Like, what if we did all the stuff that we kind of Lord Farquaad could have had if he were likable? We do that with Harold, but again, we have like this layer of he's the Frog King. I mean, what if we did all that? And he's the yeah.
All right.
Quickly on Queen Lillian, not a lot there, but we have Julie Andrews doing the voice, really nice, kind of the classic kind of regal princess-like voices.
Julie Andrews is like the closest thing we have to freaking like fairy tale royalty these days.
It's very true. Like basically, it's her and Angela Lansbury. Really, those are kind of the two fairy tale royalty you really go to.
Angela Lansbury came out of retirement for the Nutcracker of all goddamn things.
Well, no, she did. I'm trying to think. If this is really crap. I know that she saw her in something. I saw her do a voice in something recently. Blanking on it. I don't think how recent it. Oh wait, I think she was in The Grinch recently.
Oh yeah, you're right. She was in The Grinch.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, she was in the Grinch recently. So I guess she's been. Wait, you mean she retired? I didn't know she retired.
Oh, I'm sorry. I use the frame came out of retirement loosely.
Oh, well, oh yeah, she's been back even since Popper's Penguin. She's been doing stuff.
Yeah, I just saw the Nutcracker recently, and I was like, wait a minute, is that who I think it is?
So, but yeah, I mean, Queen Lillian though, I like that she's kind of the open-minded peacemaker. Yeah, I love that throughout that dinner scene, like she's not condemning Shrek, but she's grasping onto the idea and she's rolling with it. I love that. She's just kind of a really good hostess. If we've learned anything about Julie Andrews, she can play a good hostess and just kind of a really pleasant person. In the end, like again, it's so kind of interesting when you think about this that if King Harold's on a path of being like of kind of Fiona's arc from the first movie, Queen Lillian's kind of somewhat in kind of the Shrek framework of this, where she's kind of she's accepting of the Frog Prince, she's accepting of that in a way. I don't know. It's kind of eventually again like she's more in the ballpark of Shrek at the beginning of this, where I don't know. It's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't really have much to add, Dragon. There, it's not really a very complicated character. It's just kind of like baseline supportive mother, but Julie Andrews does it well.
All right, let's get to kind of the old Mary Brew of Shrek's pals, Shrek's buddies.
All right, and they all have a little bit more to do in this movie, which is pretty refreshing.
I think this movie gives them the most to do out of any of the movies. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. Pinocchio is a lot of fun.
Yeah, Pinocchio. I mean, I'll say this: Pinocchio. He's more of like he's kind of one of the big punch. He's kind of like the bullet in the chamber of comedy that they had for the movie. Like, okay, guys, if all it's kind of like push the red button. Like Pinocchio's the push the red button in the movie. We have this one big joke with Pinocchio. If we need it, we're gonna push the red button, and we're gonna get a laugh from the audience because everyone's favorite joke from Shrek when it came out was the Pinocchio joke. The one that got the biggest laugh in the theater was the Pinocchio thong joke. Which I feel might be an Ed Wood reference, but I could never confirm that.
It could be. I could see that. Like, Ed Wood is very much in that kind of Hollywood mindset that this movie was bred in.
It's, the whole Angora thing. It just makes me think of like, what if he's made of wood? I don't know. It might be an Ed Wood reference.
I don't think that kind of joke would fly nowadays, Dragon.
No. Plus, everybody jumping down the throat of it saying, "What are you trying to say about that?" But no,
okay,
Pinocchio.
Here's the thing, like briefly comparing side characters and transsexuality, because yes, we're going to go down that route right now. Um, Have fun, kids. I feel like the Pinocchio gag with a thong is unacceptable nowadays because of the way that the different characters react to it. Like they're just like, oh, that's weird. But Dragon, what's a good example of the transsexual community that I feel is like almost becoming like a trans icon right now?
Well, I believe I'm not primed on the terms here, so I could be absolutely wrong. But don't you mean transvestite?
Yes.
All right. Anyway,
I mean, transsexual. But
all right, sorry. Again, I don't know the updates on it. Go on.
the Big Bad Wolf.
Yes, that's a good example. Yes.
Like I feel like the Big Bad Wolf is like an excellent representation for the trans community, almost like kind of unintentionally. But I digress, Dragon. I didn't want to make that too political. It was just kind of an interesting observation I had, like the two differences between the two. Because the Big Bad Wolf, everyone accepts him. He accepts himself very nonchalantly. He just is who he is. Pinocchio is just kind of this weird, like dark secret that Pinocchio has. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, on the whole, I mean, I think Pinocchio's probably the nicest out of the bunch. He's just very nice. He's loyal to Shrek. And he's like, I'm not changing the channel until I see Shrek and Fiona. He's like really nice. I don't know. It's just he's he's the key in kind of
the real boy gag.
I'm sorry, in the what?
Hello.
What did you say, Tiki? I missed the last part.
Oh, I said I love the real boy gag. Sorry.
Yes, that is funny. Yes, the whole, I'm a
I'm a
real
real
boy.
boy.
So of course, oh, just
Dang it.
so close, and then he became a real boy. And look, if you want to look, if you want to get all thematic and philosophical, let me overanalyze this for a mere moment, if I may. He
Oh
becomes a
dear
real
God.
boy, which is in
Oh no.
parallel to Shrek and Company, also going through a transformative process, and ultimately he has that stripped away from him. Which, interestingly, unlike everybody else, okay, I guess he and Donkey if we have Shrek and Fiona who are happy with the forms that they've chosen, we have Donkey and Pinocchio who like the forms that they had. In Pinocchio's case, for a mere moment, Donkey kind of grew to like it, but Pinocchio, out of the four of them, was the one who still longs for it as we go through, still longs for it. But if you want to look at the grand thing of the whole franchise, Pinocchio will come to grips of being fine with being a real boy in the next movie, coming to grips of using it as an advantage. So we all of there being a puppet instead of a real boy. So he comes to a place of acceptance in the grander scheme of the entire franchise. But he has longer to come to grips with it than Donkey does.
Yeah, I could definitely put a trans spin on what you just said, Dragon, to make it more relevant to my trans point, but I'll spare you.
Okay. So let's talk about something non-controversial. Let's talk about Gingy.
Yeah, Gingy is like by far the most memorable part of this whole movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, Gingy is awesome. He's very proactive. He's kind of I
You
like
know
that
what
Gingy.
character I feel like in both Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, he essentially gets one big scene.
Yeah, he does. He does, but I like that Gingy. He's kind of the leader of the group, and he leads the rescue. Like, he's a presence within the scenes, despite he has like one big scene.
Of course, I love seeing the Muffin Man.
Who lives on Drury Lane? Do you know the Muffin Man? Okay, never mind. All right, but yeah, I mean, I love that he's very useful in that, in knowing the Muffin Man. We call that back in a huge way, in a literal huge way, with Mongo. Gingy brings new life into this world with Mongo. He's kind of a Frankenstein in his own right. I love we always have bizarrely enough, we always have the Frankenstein parallel with the gingerbread man, which, if you ever really think about it, there is like a no-brainer Frankenstein parallel with the gingerbread man, but it really, I never would have thought of it before the Shrek movies, I gotta tell you.
What, the fact that like all the different ingredients on the gingerbread man represent the different body parts?
Well, no, I just meant the whole bringing something to life, like we do with the gingerbread man. It's like, yeah, you bring the gingerbread man to life, and it's a creation that you made, you constructed, and then it's just kind of going out there. It's like, yeah, that's you don't really think of, like, yeah, it's kind of a no brainer for Frankenstein. You really think about it.
One of my favorite moments is that we make the gumdrop buttons fucking epic.
Yep, that's how you do a callback. You take the little line, then you amplify it into a big way. It doesn't feel like, oh, they had the reference to the gumdrop buttons, but no, it's like this big, like, not the gumdrop buttons, because that's the big sensitive point of the gingerbread cookies. They love the gumdrop buttons. That's how they say hi to the world. You take away the gumdrop buttons, you take away what the cookie is. It's just
God.
bread. It's just the cookies from Gremlins. If you take away the anyway. But yeah, I mean, he creates new life, and again, like, Gingy in a way loses almost the creation, if not like a really good friend in the in manga. The whole, like, be good, and they pull a little ET reference there. But Gingy heroically, he jumps off when manga goes down. Gingy heroically jumps and kind of dies with him. He goes to die with him in a way. It's really poetic when you think about it. Like, I brought this life in this world. I'm not going to leave him.
God.
Yeah,
Man, so many
this
in this movie, man.
again, he's the leader of the group. Seriously, I think he's the leader of the Shrek group, because he's like, again, I just love this adorable little gingerbread character. Is like the most masculine of the whole Shrek group. He's kind of calling the shots. He's the toughest guy in the crew. All right. Okay, so let's see beyond that. real quick, Big Bad Wolf, which we kind of touched on already. Just basically the Big Bad Wolf's kind of carefree exposition. That's kind of what we have at the beginning, where he's in the towers. Is like, who are you? Where's Fiona? Says, oh, she's with her husband on her honeymoon. Honeymoon? That whole thing's pretty much exposition, and the wolf uses its breath like for a point where like, hey, just the wand, everyone, it's a basic keep away with the wand. The wolf uses its the huff and puff ability and just basically blows the wand all across. Again, it's basically all the wolf that really does, and that just wears the grandma outfit. All right, then we have the 3 little pigs and the 3 blind mice who are just there because they sound funny.
Yeah, I don't even remember anything that either of them did.
There's kind of a plot hole with the 3 blind mice, because the 3 blind mice are, so, as the ride and as the end of the first Shrek movie indicates, the 3 blind mice were turned into the 3 blind horse. Horses that led Shrek's horse.
Oh, right. I forgot all about that, yeah.
So because again, we see those horses take them all the way back. So, take them to far, far away. So either the mice just kind of were snapped back to normal, like, I don't know what the deal is. Then again, if you want to be, look, okay, well, I'll put it on Front Street here. If you want to really nitpick and you want to give them all the credit in the world, here's what happened. They turn back to normal in the ride, and then there's got 2 different white horses. That's most likely what it is. In the continuity of Shrek, that's what happens.
Fair enough.
If you want to look to find.
One of the MVPs, the dearly departed Larry King is Doris.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, Doris. Though, yes, Doris is. I love Larry King as Doris. Though. I think Larry King is. Tiki, I was right about this. Tiki, Larry King is still alive.
Is he really?
Yes, Tiki, he's still alive. That's why I was tripped up there for a second. Wait a minute, Larry King isn't dead. Just double check real quick.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I could have sworn he passed away.
You just killed Larry King. I hope you're happy.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay.
Fucking Mandela effect, man. What are you, Tony Stark? Anyway.
No, I'm sorry. I don't. God damn it, Dragon. I even remember being sad, like, oh, there goes B. Larry King.
Anyway.
I'm tripped up about this now. God damn. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
But seriously, I do want to talk about this, though. I do love the Doris the Ugly Stepsister characters. Doris is funny. It's Larry King providing this voice. I think Larry King really gets the shine comedically in the next movie. He really does. I think he's one of the few good parts of Shrek 3, I gotta be honest. But, no.
Absolutely. I love how in Shrek 3, the replacement for Doris at the tavern is Regis.
Yeah, Regis. We keep going to these talk show hosts, and it's great. No, but seriously, it's and Doris is basically just kind of this bartender character, and just kind of the again, if you want to really you really want to look at it, Doris is kind of another representation of the whole like someone who's just kind of owned what they look like and just kind of content with who they are and how they appear to be. And that's again more of that bleeds into Shrek 3, so I'll leave most of that on the table right now. But let's just say again, I think. And Doris is a very simple plot contrivance, though, in a good way. It's like plot contrivance that's funny, though, when you realize it's a little celebrity cameo, like a one-off. It only has 2 scenes, really, in the whole movie. But again, a scene that introduces the king to Puss in Boots, and again, looks really tough, and again, a good representation of what the Poison Apple Bar is. Like, it's a place where villains and the underdogs of the fairy tales kind of come together, like your Captain Hooks and the whole gang. Basically, kind of the washed up losers of the fairy tales go. And Doris is just kind of like, yeah, the ugly stepsister. Does that? No one even like people constantly say, hey, are you the ugly stepsister? Don't even know her name. And again, she's just trying to own herself as Doris. Like, I'm Doris, man. I have a name.
Dragon, now that you mentioned it, do you mind if we do like a really quick rundown of just a who's who of who's in the tavern?
Yeah, sure. I'll just run them down. So we have Captain Hook playing the piano.
The one that I really want to talk about, Dragon, is fucking Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah, and that one gets complicated as the franchise goes on. We have, yeah.
Honestly, I don't even remember anything else. I just wanted to bring up Rumpelstiltskin.
You know, you could have saved that for the next one. Rumpelstiltskin actually has a line. But you know, we have the there's like the evil. Well, the evil. I don't know. Now I'm jumping to the third. Like, they have the headless horseman who's drinking, so he's just like spitting stuff up because he has no head. So, I remember there's this gag where the headless horseman's getting a breathalyzer test. Really hilarious when you think about it. All right. Anyway, that's it. Let's talk about our villains.
All right. So, of course, we have Rupert Everett as Prince Charming. Very good call to make Prince Charming a legit bad guy in this movie. I feel like he's kind of like this bumbling sidekick in many ways in this movie, and then unfortunately they don't do a lot with him in the second movie that he's in. But he is very entertaining in this one.
Yeah, I love that Charming is anything but. You know, I love that he's anything but charming. It's a great subversion of what you expect. And again, it's turning again. It's kind of going to almost like a more irreverent Beauty and the Beast route, where it's kind of our Gaston figure. But only what if Gaston wasn't good at anything? That's
Exactly.
kind of what it is. It's like what if Gaston wasn't good at anything? And that's the thing. He's a pretty. Something's off when the prince looks better than when the prince tries to look better than the princess. Something's off there. We're like, okay, there's something's not right here. Just like he cares more about his looks than he's doing with the Charlie Angel's hair flip, and everything. But again, I love that. He's all glory. He's all for the glory. He's all for like the telling the story of like blistering winds and everything. But no real effort at all because again, he was late. Like again, he didn't get there in time. What was he doing all that? It couldn't have been. It took Shrek like a couple days, but it took Charming like God. How long did it take him?
I think it was just like just the concern about his looks was the problem. I think that literally was holding him up.
That's the thing because he's doing all these big heroic poses along the way, and like I think he took the long route. He took the long route so he could be able to tell the story. That's why blistering winds and. All that. But yeah, I mean, I love Rupert Everett's voice. I've loved him ever since. I remember the first time I ever saw. I think the first time I ever saw Rupert Everett was Inspector Gadget as the Claw. And I'm not saying that was like the best representation of that character, but it was Rupert Everett having fun. We just have this big booming voice coming from this guy all about good looks and everything. I just love that big booming voice coming from this character. And again, like this guy's so obviously a villain, but again, he's played as like classically the hero of the story, who is everything but. So it's but
I feel like whereas Gaston is truly a man's man when it comes down to it, whereas this guy really is a mama's boy.
And that's the thing. I like that about it. I like that they're again as lazy and just as this guy is. I love that he has this really kind of sweet connection and dynamic with his mother. He's a mama's boy, but it's kind of sweet. It's like that one redeeming thing about this guy. Well, thank you, because here's the thing. He's not uber whiny. What I'm saying is like when he's with his mother, he's not like crying to his mother about his problems. It's like he's like chatting with his mom. He's just like, oh, hello, mom. Well, thank you. He's just really pleasant with her. It's like and again, like she mommies him a little bit, but it's really. We see where it came from. We see where she set up these unrealistic expectations, and he's been aiming to please. And in the end, I think I love Charming's comeuppance here. Where this is really where his story should have ended, where he gets kissed by the ugly stepsister who wanted to kiss him, and that's where it all works out. He's been all obsessed with looks and everything, and like definitions of beauty, and that's his comeuppance. Where again, he wasn't going to hurt anybody. He's just kind of the dumb second fiddle, and he gets his comeuppance.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the big bad of it all here. The worst of the worst, the most gruesome of the gruesome, the most psychotic of the depraved, the fairy godmother.
Yeah, I'm just gonna lay it on the line here. This is like fucking easily the best villain that DreamWorks has ever done.
Well, it's up there.
It's not for me. It's not even a question. I mean, who would you have that even comes close?
Well, are we talking in Shrek, or are we talking just the grand spectrum?
Just like grand, like all of DreamWorks.
I mean, there's some contenders. Like if you want to count Ramses, I mean, Ramses a really good villain.
All right, fine, fucking Ramses, but
And I mean, look, I mean, I don't have a solid. Yeah, my point is there are other examples, but I say the Fairy Godmother is a big contender. Yes, I see it.
I mean, my God, can we talk about that I Need a Hero montage? Shit.
Everybody goes nuts for the I. Everybody goes nuts for that montage.
For good reason, man.
I mean, no, I like it. I like it. It's good. It's really intense, and it's a balance of you got some laughs in there. You got some, really. I think it's really well orchestrated. Like so well orchestrated, really well edited. That's the thing that really jumps out to me about it.
Mhm. I really like how insidious this character is.
Yeah, she's a master manipulator.
Mhm.
A great way. I love that. I love how while she's a master manipulator, she's enterprising. I love how enterprising she is. I love how she's gonna made fairy. Basically, it's like what if all the fairy godmothers in the fairy tales was the same fairy godmother, and that's her business. That's her meat and potatoes. She has like that's where again like that happiness is a teardrop away. I love that. That's the thing I love about the fairy taking the fairy godmother. It's a business card, a fairy godmother with a business card. That's all you need. That's great. It's like she's the most evil and powerful force to go up against because she's all magic in a whole universe that involves magic and has like all these like believe it or not, like these all bigger than life things that can only happen in a storybook that all hinges on magic, and she's the one who makes the magic. She's the Coke factory.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of a little worried on time here, so.
All right. I'll be. I think okay. I think something on rewatch something that kind of got implied to me is that I think Fiona. I wonder why the fairy godmother is so fixated on Fiona. Because I wonder if it was that Fiona was her biggest challenge. Like, how can I can't undo the spell, but I got basically got to find the loophole out of the whole the true love. I got to find the true love's kiss thing to get her back, and in doing so, my son will become eventually the king of far, far away, which would be good for me, be good for publicity, get everybody walks home happy. And I feel that Fiona, in the face of what Fiona's become to her, this is like her biggest failure, and especially with her son who didn't get there in time, which is an embarrassment to her. Which again, everything's reflecting bad on her, and it looks like the fairy godmother is nothing but success rates. But then this comes along, and it's not making her look good. So she's kind of trying to undo that, and therefore this big plan to orchestrate. Okay, I'm gonna set this right. I'm gonna get her. She's gonna look back to normal, and importantly, I'm gonna make my son king. And I'm gonna use all of this shenanigans to my. Again, I love that she's improvising a really good plan here. She's like, okay, so Shrek's taking the happily ever after potion. I'm going to use that to my advantage. She's a really good thinker. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess the important thing is that she's using magic for destructive and destructive and vengeful purposes, which is her undoing. I like that that's her undoing. Like when she was using the magic to destroy somebody, because ordinarily her magic has been used to help people. But in the very end, with her wand, she's like trying to vaporize Shrek, again, using magic for a vengeful, vindictive purpose. And in the end, that reflects back on her and that destroys her. It's a really good poetic ending for the fairy godmother.
Yeah, and I like how, I kind of like how her death is sort of final in the Shrek universe. I like how we never try to bring her back because we could have easily written her back into the story, because given her power set and everything. But I like that it's just like a one and done kind of deal. It's just that's all you need of her. You see the corruption, you see the manipulation, but you see the kind of the sweet undercurrent that she has going through it. And like you said, Dragon, you even see the kind of the adorable bonding relationship that she has with her son along the way. So all in all, it just makes for a really strong character and a very layered character who makes for a good one and done appearance in this franchise.
I think the best moment with the fairy godmother for me is I love the tender approach she has in that scene. Basically, she gloats to Shrek that, hey, look at Fiona there. Don't you want what's best for her? And again, like after she's mocked him, she then gets in this really tender thing where she's approach with Shrek's defeat here, where she's saying like, "Hey, you want her to be happy. Look at her; she's happy. Just it'd be best for you to go away. Like she could have killed him there, if she really wanted to, but like she cushioned the blow and said it was for the best. And that's kind of again, it's kind of nice and tender, but at the same time, it's really evil when you think about what she's saying. And she's saying, "You don't matter. Go away. You're not worth my time."
Yeah.
Being kind of tender yet callous at the same time. All right, so all that said, so we've reached the end of our character rainbow. Now let's talk about pros and cons.
All right. I've kind of been struggling on where to mention this dragon, but I just want to give a shout out to my favorite joke in the movie.
Okay.
It happens very early on in the movie. It's when the trumpeters show up at the house, and the one trumpeter just gets out of, just goes on his own little riff. Enough, Reggie.
That's the director too.
For some reason, that's always stuck out to me. It's like I was really glad when Doug Walker highlighted that moment in his Disney December review of this, because it just like as he says, it's like you don't need to have that in there. Like the scene could have played out perfectly fine without that, but just the fact that that's in there, it'll always be just this little tiny nugget of in joke for me. And Dragon, that's exactly the way I can describe the humor through this whole movie. Analyzing the characters and everything, we can certainly get into some big thematic undercurrents that we're about to dive into with the last section. But at the end of the day, this movie is a comedy first and foremost, and man, is it just chock full of great jokes.
Yeah, let's see, it's what I love story-wise with this movie. Story-wise, I love that the movie developed Fiona's fairy tale. Fiona initially, you see the first Shrek movie and you kind of wonder, okay, so what is this? Is Fiona kind of like the DreamWorks take on Sleeping Beauty or something? Is she fitting into a fairy tale that we know? And we realize no, she isn't. She's her own fairy tale, and we're exploring that in the world building of okay, so she was locked away in a tower. Why was that? And what kind of parents do that? And we kind of see that in the world building as we go to far, far away. You see, okay, there's the kingdom she came from. It's kind of like in LA, sort of a kind of setting in which kind of breed kind of a lot of insecurities about looks and everything. So a lot of that. I really like developing Fiona's world and going to far, far away. All that's really good world building. So, or as on the whole, our new characters.
It has excellent world building characters that were already established. Does more things with them. It has a lot of great callbacks without feeling forced. I mean, just all in all, Dragon, it's a perfect sequel. There's a reason why this movie is widely regarded. It's not exactly The Godfather Part 2, but my God, in the end, Godfather Part 2.
Oh, sorry, because you said Godfather Part 2. I keep thinking of, I was thinking this all throughout Comic-Con, by the way. I keep thinking of Mike Coulter, the way he says, Godfather Part 2. Anyway, yes, I see what you're saying. So I love, of course, we have some really great food animation, by the way. Tiki and I really, we love good food animation. We have it with the dinner sequence, which still looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, it's more appetizing food than we had in the first Shrek. Like the rats and everything, and just a whole lot better. Let's see. Again, I think just the combo you said. Again, the humor's sharper. I think it's sharper and less dependent on gross out gags. I think we get away from the gross out gags. And I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just saying we have them there a little bit, not as much as we had in the first movie, which kind of shows there's a growth and there's an evolution there. Importantly, because
probably my favorite pop culture gag in the whole franchise is the Farbucks gag.
Yeah, it's funny.
Where all the one Farbucks gets crushed by the gingerbread man, and then they all run right across the street to another Farbucks.
I think there are a number of really great and memorable scenes. Like for me, I love Harold going for a ride, very Godfather, or in your case, Godfather Part 2-esque. Basically, I love when Harold goes for a ride with Fairy Godmother. It feels very Mafia, very Godfather-esque, where he's forced in there. The whole basically the Friar Fat Boy sequence, that whole scene. I think that's a beautifully written and executed scene. It's so great. So it looks beautiful. It looks I was going to the movie really hyped about that scene and seeing how it was communicated. It's like, yeah, man, that scene was done perfectly. It tells you what you need to know. It's not like ham-fistedly explain like, okay, you need to do this now. It's like it feels like a scene you're in Harold's shoes, and of course we have this ridiculous. It feels a very Simpson-esque gag in a good way. It just feels like, hey, welcome to Friar Fat Boys. Can we get you anything? You notice all these details years later too of like of Charlie putting on the Burger King crown hat. It's all really fun. Again, in terms of standout scenes, basically it's the Puss in Boots encounter in the woods. And dinner scene. Those for me are the three scenes I remember most from Shrek 2. Like those are the three. And of course, Human Shrek was really trippy and really cool to see. I like the design of Human Shrek. More on that later, I know. But I guess lastly, so the first Shrek had a major problem where the movie was going great and had the best pacing you've ever seen until we get to the end of Act 2, the beginning of Act 3. That's when it hit a slow crawl. We're like, okay, now we've hit pause and we've crashed through the windshield. Now we got to climb back in the car. And this does not have that problem. This movie has great momentum.
Oh man, this movie is like you could take a fucking course on how this movie is just literally like screenwriting wise. It's perfect. Dragon. I don't throw the word perfect around with filmmaking often, so that's high praise coming from me. This is a perfect screenplay.
But you see what I'm saying, though, right? Where it builds momentum to that "I need a hero" scene. Basically, builds everything to that moment, and then you're just kind of you have the resonance kind of the vibrations from that sequence playing through to this after that to the ending of like now you don't know what's going to happen. You're at the edge of your seat. But again, it doesn't get through everything as fast as the first Shrek movie did, but it builds and it builds and it pays off.
For sure.
And of course, the action's enthralling. So I think that, of course, at the end we got to talk about living La Vida Loca.
Dragon, ironically, I feel like this, even more so than the original Shrek, is what kind of like set the tone for like, okay, we got to end it on a dance number.
But I mean,
don't get me wrong. Eddie Murphy and Antonio Banderas are really fun together. They do a great duet, and it's a good song choice. But
see what's funny?
It's not nearly as good of a song choice as "I'm a Believer," just because "I'm a Believer" feels like it was literally written for the first Shrek movie.
You know who picked La Vida Loca?
Antonio Banderas?
Nope.
Who?
Katzenberg.
Oh God.
He's specific, and Tiki. It's the funniest thing you've ever heard. Right? They were about to end the movie, and then they were like, I don't know if they were told directly to put a song at the end, or if it was just like they were thinking about putting the song in. And then, in terms of picking the song, Jeffrey Katzenberg calls out of the blue, or when he was told about this, is La Vida Loca, just without hesitation, just told him La Vida Loca. They ran with it. It's like not exactly a kid-friendly song. You don't get me wrong. It played great, and I like it. But it's a really well done sequence. But it's just still. But last thing too, in regards to well done sequences, again, we don't have to go through every bit of it. But the opening montage, because you know how much I love the opening montage of the first Shrek. It doesn't hold. It's not to the same effect. It's not as perfect as the first movie's opening sequence, but it's a solid opening montage of Shrek and Fiona. It's building character.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not. It doesn't have the emotional powerhouse weight of Married Life, obviously, but I feel like it kind of captures the sweetness of the first half of Married Life almost.
Yeah, it captures the happy coupleness of it all. There's con. So what's the movie got working against
it? Honestly, not much. I already brought up the fact that Donkey is a little bit more grating and doesn't have a lot to do in the plot.
There's a really big plot hole in the movie.
That's about it. Like I said, this movie is fundamentally pretty perfect.
Well, look, there is kind of a plot hole where it's really easy to win Fiona back from fake Shrek, and we never talk about it. Shrek's bummed out, I know, and do it to make Fiona happy. But no, Shrek literally just needs to speak, and she's going to hear your voice, and she's going to know it's not the other guy.
But then we wouldn't have half of a movie, Dragon.
I know. I'm just pointing it out. So I'm thinking, but my cons are very small here. Okay, I want to make it clear. Okay, just so you have that. There's a bit of overcompensation for the sequel, which kind of complements your point there about La Vida Loca is good. However, I would say this: there's too much music in this movie. Like outside of the sequences where we need music.
When I think of a Shrek movie with too much music, my mind instantly goes to Shrek the Third. So I don't think we've hit that territory yet. I still think the music fits the movie for the most part. But I will say that the song choices don't necessarily fit the movie as well as they did in the first one, like thematically.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, Tiki, is like they're not bad songs that were chosen, but I do feel like we're doing it too frequently. Here's an example I'll give you. All right, the scene where they're stealing the potion from Fairy Godmother. We don't need music on the. We don't need a song playing over the escape in that sequence. We don't need that. You know.
I'm kind of going to disagree with you, Dragon, because I actually like the fact that we get that the movie feels more like a contemporary musical.
I don't know. That might be subjectivity.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably subjectivity. The point is, I think there's definitely there's a lot more music than there was in the first one. Again, I think you're right that something definitely gets a little bit more out of control as the thing goes forward. But here, I feel it's a little bit more.
I'm just going to preface this. I'm going to give kind of like a little bit of a tease for the Shrek the Third podcast. All right, Dragon.
All right.
I've got a rant, a full blown like bulging eyebrow rant against the use of Live or Let Die in Shrek the Third.
Oh, you and I might have a problem.
Oh, really?
We might. We'll.
Okay. Well, that's. Ooh.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. Let's again. Okay. Here's the kind of bugs me. I want to know if it bugs you. All right. Fairy Godmother just says, "Look, bandits, bandits," and then it turns into like this whole frame up thing. Like, does that really make any sense?
No.
I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot wrong. Tiki, you're correct in that this movie is near perfect, but I'm saying these are like the few things that really stick out to you.
Like this movie is written in a way that basically every plot hole is a we don't care plot hole.
That's the thing. I mean, they have again. It's like three I don't care. There's three we don't care. Here's the thing. I feel it's more of like an I don't care plot hole. Like, you know what? I don't care. I think it's Katzenberg saying I don't care. Like, you know what? I don't care. That's the difference. Pixar, it's like a community, like we're throwing our hands up in the air. We don't care. We're having too much of a good time. And Katzenberg's just like counting his money. I don't care. Anyway, right. But I mean, again, the 3 points being as the third one being there's kind of a no-win situation with the love potion, where either you, the audience member, are smart enough to realize, okay, he obviously did not give her the love potion, or again, basically they kind of paint themselves into a corner with the whole love potion plot line. Like, did she take it? Did she not take it?
I will agree with you there. The love potion was a little bit overly convoluted.
Again, these are things when they first came out I never thought of, but it's even years later. It's like, yeah, those things. Again, they're kind of like the only things that make you scratch with in regards to logic. Like, yeah, it was a little off there. Also, the Joan Rivers was a little on. I think out of all the pop culture references, Joan Rivers, that was too much on the nose. That's Look, I like the red carpet thing, but I mean, come on, Joan Rivers, really? Do we really?
I swear to God, I'm pretty sure I mixed up Joan Rivers and Larry King in terms of like the celebrity cameos who have since passed.
Well, that one makes sense because she actually is dead.
Oh God, that's what it was. That's exactly what the issue was.
Yeah, because Larry King looks so much like Joan Rivers, it's uncanny. I understand completely, Tiki. Anyway, but honestly, that whole red carpet thing, we didn't even need that either. Like, why do we need? The only reason we need the red carpet is for the plot, so they're watching it on TV. That's the only reason we need the red carpet there. It just feels like, come on, guys.
I feel like that's going to illustrate an issue that becomes more and more prevalent as the franchise goes on. Is Shrek's celebrity?
Yeah, well, believe me, T, I had stuff to say about that when we get to the other two movies, but let's
I'm sure you do. I just kind of want to underline that as a point to make in the future.
Yes, but again, here is not much of a celebrity, which I don't think is again. So right now, it's not. It's a non-issue at all right now. But you're again. I guess that in bringing the red carpet, yeah, you're right. Like that's a little, it's a little sniff at like, wait a minute, what's that could lead to trouble. But again, that's gonna the powder keg gets going. God. Okay. Anyway, anyway, let's move on from there.
All right.
Move on from their butter pants.
Hello, layers of the onion.
Yes, layers of the onion.
Okay. So yeah, without getting too much into it because we were already kind of over time on this. I think the movie does a great job of establishing, like, kind of like each character is going through an identity crisis in some way, and the body switching or the transformation is just a way to kind of highlight that and put some symbolism towards it. Like as you already said, Donkey kind of sees himself as the noble steed, and in the movie we get to kind of illustrate what that looks like for him in his own mind. Of course, Shrek and Fiona kind of have to grapple with, the idea of being beautiful. One of my favorite scenes is the sorority girls like gathered around human Shrek.
Just Jack, Jill from Jack and Jill, by the way.
Oh.
Yep. Let's see. So I
very much kind of illustrates the kind of the being comfortable in your own skin moral.
Yes. Of course, we have the marriage and dealing with the in-laws. It's kind of a universal theme of like, there's always going to be some discomfort when entering into a new family like that. And of course, kind of Shrek becomes.
He did a very good job of like the framework for it is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but it's not an out-and-out retelling of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner by any means.
Yeah, it's one main sequence of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That's really what it is. I just love overall. There's like the theme of like that deeper, more personal rejection than Shrek was contending with in the first movie. We explore prejudice with the way we explore prejudice is kind of a smarter, more realistic way via King Harold. We use the Frog Prince. I mean, I think the most brilliant stroke in the entire film on a rewatch, when you really think about it, is that we use the Frog Prince to relate to Shrek, to relate to the story of Shrek, which is genius when you think about it. Because that's what Shrek is all about. It's really about the Frog Prince story. The frog finds the princess, and it all involves a kiss that's a change in appearance. And it kind of Princess and the Frog also kind of does that. And if you really want to be technical, but it's really kind of it's really interesting that if you're going to relate any other fairy tale into the Shrek universe, again, we work Puss in Boots in really well, but Frog Prince is a no-brainer. And just seeing King Harold's whole psychology and the methodology of like, hey, he's self-loathing himself and his image of what he used to be. He had that corrected from the fairy godmother, and he's redirecting his old fear of his own inadequacy onto Shrek unfairly. And again, but he's not a monster. He's what society made him into. Like, society made him into that monster that's judging himself and reflecting bad on himself. And again, just perpetuating that onto Shrek. And ultimately, again, Shrek is a character who accepts himself. He's not alone in the world, but he's still skeptical, and he's of the new status quo. And again, that new status quo is something that's going to be building on, like, how much can you change status quo before losing your own identity, which is an idea the franchise is going to continue to run with. And I feel, in regards to like the deeper theme here, is like increasingly we're seeing more of ourselves in Shrek, and again, the sacrifice he would make for love and the sacrifices he'd make for himself as he goes forward. And it's going to get a little unflattering when we get to Shrek the Third, but you'll see where it goes from there. And it's the last point.
It's unflattering.
I'm sorry?
I said, what about Shrek the Third isn't unflattering?
Oh God, well, there's so much of that. But yeah, our villain. Last thing I want to note with our villains too is our villains are elitist. They're elitist and they're good looking. That's the idea. They're elitist, like fairy godmother. They're good looking, like charming, and it's kind of a cautionary tale in blind trust. Don't trust the fairy godmother because instantly because we're used to trusting the fairy godmother in fairy tales because she has the magic, she's the problem solver, she's a deal maker. That's not something. She has a catch. There's a catch. There's a want. There's a need. There's publicity. There's a business that's being run there. She's kind of like there's an anti-corporate message that's kind of planted here that kind of feeds into the whole fame and fortune thing that we do in the other two movies. So I like that we kind of continue what we had with Farquaad with elitism, and we blow that up here in a really interesting way with Fairy Godmother. So we get a lot of interesting layers to this one.
All right. So just final thoughts on my end really quick. As I said, I think this is by far the best of the Shrek franchise. I don't think it's quite as emotionally resonant as the first movie, but it's still definitely got a great emotional core to it. I think it does everything a sequel should do. It ramps up the characters. It ramps up the world building. It gives us excellent new characters. It gives us a villain that's even more threatening than the first movie's villain. And all in all, I think it's very much in contention to be DreamWorks' finest hour. It's one of those movies that makes you look at DreamWorks as more than just like an irreverent animation studio that makes these quirky comedies that riff on pop culture. Although, unto itself, Shrek 2 is a very irreverent comedy with a lot of quirky pop culture references, but something about this combination and the script and the pacing and everything just makes it so much more than that. And it really is a classic, Dragon. It's a modern day classic in animation, and it goes to show just how good an animated sequel to be. And I think it's I think it's really in good company with the Toy Story sequels and How to Train Your Dragon 2 in terms of like the best animated sequels we've ever gotten.
Yeah, I think it's everything you want in a sequel. Yes, there's a bit of sequelitis, but that's natural, and basically some of the overcompensation. It's not overcompensation in a bad way. I want to stress that. Like we have a little bit of we're doing a sequel and we're calling stuff back, but again, they made it work. Yeah, a little bit of that here and there, which is natural. Like any sequel would have it, and we're importantly, we're expanding on the themes of Shrek. We're introducing new, interesting, and fun characters. We're continuing to challenge the fairy tale standard in a funny way that is a story before it's a message. And in that, again, it's in that Spider-Man 2 position, Tiki, where it's more memorable. Often it's paired with the first movie in terms of quality. Like the first two movies are, they were the game, in how it changed it all, and it raised the second one raised the bar. The first one kind of changed everything, and those two are very kind of innovative in what they did for animation and of course box office wise. You had for Shrek 2, and basically saying that we're going to be there's money to be made with a sequel, but importantly you want to deliver with a sequel. And I'd agree with you. Yes, Shrek 2 is in good company with those films. Just everything went right with Shrek 2. I think Shrek 2 is the best made of the Shrek franchise, but still Shrek 1 has that nostalgia about it. Has that nostalgia and has that spirit about it. But yeah, I mean, objectively 2 is the best. I'll give you that. Objectively 2 is the best of the franchise. 1 might have some favoritism, but 2 is the best.
All right. So next time, of course, unfortunately, Dragon, we're going to have to take a look at. Oh boy, Dragon, I don't often do this, but do you want to just kind of just do a preface for Shrek the Third, just to get our bearings on what exactly we're in for?
Oh boy. All right, okay, so Shrek the Third. Well, the simple way of putting it, it's the anti-Toy Story 3. That's how I like to refer to Shrek the Third. It's the anti-Toy Story 3 in every way imaginable. It really is. It's imagine all the wonderful whimsy and the emotional, heartfelt, the whole so long partner and shaking hands with Buzz goodbye. Imagine that, but imagine the opposite of that in every way imaginable. Imagine all of that just completely turned on its head, backwards, just hey, we're doing the third one. Everybody loves Shrek. Everyone loves the first two Shrek movies, and let's just let's just not deliver at all the third one. 3 is the dramatic number. Let's just, because what if we knew we weren't going to stop at 3? What would that look like? That's what you give Shrek the Third.
All right. Well, that will be coming up on the next installment. Well, grab your bookmarks, kids. We're pausing this story and making camp for the night, but don't worry, come sunrise, we're making waffles. Hey, dragon.
What?
Dragon.
What?
Look at it! Look at it! I want you to look at it!